It's really a book to help people answer the question that I've never seen very satisfactorily answered. What does art do for us? Why does it exist? Why do we like art? It's a very profound question. Why do we like music? Why would we like one collection of notes better than any other? It's obviously not a random selection that we've made. I've been thinking about that since I was a kid, really. And I've read so many books. Many of these books behind me are about art, but very few of them attempt to answer the simple question, what does art do for us? Why do we like it? It's always assumed that we kind of all know the answer to that question. But actually, if you ask people, why are you an artist? Why do you do art? Or why do you like art? They say, well, it's nice, isn't it? But that isn't an answer. That's just a way of saying, I like it. What I think I was looking for was a sort of biological or psychological explanation for the existence of art. And this book is an attempt to bring together the thoughts I've had in that respect. I was at a party and I started talking to the 15-year-old daughter of the host of the party. Very nice, intelligent young woman who said, yeah, I wanted to go to art school actually because I really love doing art, but my teacher said I was too bright for that, so I should go for science subjects. And I thought, this is really the death of a culture when you take the brightest young people and stop them thinking about a huge area of human activity. What I was thinking, I suppose, one of the things I was thinking is, what could I give that 15-year-old girl as an answer to that question so that she could say to her teachers, this is why I want to do it. This is why I think it's important. And what could I give those teachers so that they could go to their schools and say, don't cut the arts budget again, as you did last year and the year before, because this is why art is important. Of course, at the moment, arts are going to be at the bottom of the pile. They don't seem very important. You know, what seems really important is technology and artificial intelligence and all the very complicated problems we have with climate change and so on. Those things have to be addressed. But one of the ways we'll address them is by imagining futures. One of the theories in this book is that art is one of the ways in which we imagine futures. It's part of our mental digestion process, if you like, our way of handling all the new input that's coming in and our way of sorting out how we feel about it and what seems important to us. I want to really produce a simple justification for art. This book doesn't pretend to tell you everything about art or even much about art, but it does try to say, but this is why it exists. I'd been talking about this for many, many years, and I've been doing lectures and talking in art schools about it and universities and so on. So I've been thinking, I must put this into a book. I must get these ideas down before I die. It was a great stroke of luck that I met Bette A, and she was an art teacher. She's a novelist, she's an artist, she's an art teacher. And we started talking about art education and the sort of tragedy that has befallen art schools. You know, they've been constantly defunded and they've been constantly required to justify their existence in terms that I think are quite unfair. Art schools should not have to compete with science subjects as though they're important in the same way. I think science is very, very important, and I'm very fond of science and interested in it. And I have lots of friends in the sciences, but art is important in another way, and those two things together are complementary to each other. They belong together. They're not the same thing, but they belong with each other. If you ask most people what science does, they kind of have an understanding. Science helps us understand the world and helps us produce technologies and tools that help us exploit the world and make use of it and improve our own existence. I wanted people to have as simple an understanding as that about the arts, and that's what the book was about. Bette and I were sitting at this table having this conversation and realizing that we were very much thinking along the same lines. She, as an art teacher, saw how the art schools were being corrupted by this entirely externally imposed mission to academicize themselves, so to make art look like an academic subject, which it isn't actually. but to look as if it was, because then they would have some claim to respectability in the educational system. I thought, oh, good, here's somebody who really already understands this. I said to her, would you like to have a look through any of the things I've written about this? And she did, and she said, this has got to be a book. We should put this together as a book. She went through the thankless task of reading transcripts of about 100 lectures I've given, seeing articles I'd written, and many interviews. I talk about this kind of thing. So she went through all that and started to find bits and put them together. Of course, it turns out she's also a really good illustrator. When I do talks, I sometimes show diagrams so that people can see what I'm talking about. And she does diagrams a lot as well. So then her illustrational skills came out, and suddenly this book sort of came to life with not just text, but with her lovely pictures as well. So I suppose the overall hope I have for this book is that it might, first of all, demystify art in a certain way. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm not really creative. That's something that artists do, and I'm just an ordinary person. I can't have those kinds of ideas. But what I want to say to people is that nearly all of us are creative a lot of the time. You know, but we do it in ways that aren't called art. Makeup, for instance, how we dress, how we style ourselves, how we talk. There are lots and lots of forms of creative behavior, and there isn't a sort of one group of people who are creative and then another group who aren't. There's all sorts of things. I mean, some people are lucky enough, like I am, to be creative as their job. That's all I have to do every day. Get up and be creative for the day. Most people think that that's a world that isn't their world. They have to have a job and they have to do this and they have to do that. And how do you expect me to be creative? But creativity is something that is born into humans. And I think reawakening that, saying to people, you can actually do it. Whatever it is, it's your thing, you can do it. I like to say it's everything from Cézanne to cake decoration. Cake decoration, for instance, or knitting cardigans and so on, those kinds of things are traditionally seen as something people do in their bit of spare time, and it's not very serious and not very important. I think it's all serious. It's the place where people experiment with their feelings about things, and that is very, very important for humans to do. After all, most of your big decisions aren't made on the basis of carefully balanced spreadsheets and so on. You know, who you decide to settle down with, what kind of work you decide to do, what you think about your life, what religions you belong to, what political parties you belong to, they nearly all come down to questions of feeling. Art is how we explore having feelings, then reflecting on why we have them and how we have them and what they suggest that we should do next. That's important. That's important practice in being a human being. I want to make all of that seem more like normal behavior, not as something that only clever people do, or only rich people do, or only lucky people do. I want to say it's something that we can all do. Why publish a book about something that isn't finished? It's partly because I don't think that I've completely exhausted the exploration of this by any means. I hope I've started a way of thinking about something, but I don't claim that I've finished it. Human behavior and human thinking about behavior is always evolving, and it would be really quite arrogant to suggest that I thought I'd had every thought you could have about this. I want to get a conversation going, really, and I think the conversation will be the finishing of the book, really. It's already sort of had that effect, because people say to me, so what's the book about? And I say, well, it's sort of this and that, and then they immediately start thinking about it and talking about it, and I start talking about it with them. And little by little, this idea starts to grow. It takes form. I wouldn't want to pretend that just me and Bette on our own had sort of sorted this whole subject out. We're trying to start something, if you like. I think I probably have every contemporary book published that tries to answer the question, why does art exist? There's only about a dozen of them. It's an enormous subject that hasn't been talked about very much. That whole library practically is full of books on art, but it's on things like Picasso or Modigliani or Beethoven, or, it's on individual subtopics within this big question. It's as though they thought, yeah, well, everyone knows why art exists. It's nice. So we don't need to ask that question. But it's really quite a difficult question. If you think about it, I just leave you with this question. Why do we like music? Or painting, or sculpture, or anything? Why? Why wouldn't any bunch of notes be equally interesting if it's just something about having something to listen to? But it's not like that. We have very strong preferences. I hate that and I love that, and I wouldn't be seen dead wearing that. Why do we have those preferences? It's not a trivial subject. There's too much to say. I could have written a great big book. In fact, if I'd compiled all my lectures and essays and everything, it would have been a monstrous book that nobody would ever look at, in which I tried to fill in all the possibilities. I didn't want to do that. I wanted a book that was big enough for a 15-year-old to put in her pocket, take to school and show to the teacher when she wanted to cause some trouble. It's not only for 15-year-olds, by the way, I should say. I hope that it's, I've discovered that it's a subject that people of almost any age are equally confused by. So we all need to talk about it.